Hey there, true crime friends. You know what time it is. It's time for lunchtime true crime. Honey, this case today, you know we're over here on Snapped, right? And Snapped never disappoints. First, we need you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. Picture it. 2002, Missouri. Roll your minds back. So look, a lady is found dead over there in the commuter parking lot, and people were like, oh, that's terrible. What happened? She must have unalived herself. Okay, so everybody calls the police. The police roll up, and they're like, oh, she didn't unalive herself because there's no weapon, but there's a lot of blood and body matter, mostly brains, all over the place. She's still wearing her work ID. So they're like, what is it? Who is this? Oh, Ruth Ann Madden. Oh, Ruth Ann. Too bad. Now we're gonna find out who killed you. And so people in the area were like, wait, we just saw a white car speed out of here, and I tried to chase it, but it was going fast, and I didn't want to get a ticket. And the cops were like, no. We fight crime. You just stand there and look pretty. And the townspeople were like, okay, we're going to do that. So then they go over to Ruth's husband's house, and they were like, hey, Mr. Madden, bad news. Your wife, she was found dead in a commuter parking lot. And he was like, they said he had a cigarette, and he was like, oh, slowly put his cigarette out and then lowered his head and cried. Why didn't they arrest him right then? Because I was like, wait, that's not he don't seem sad enough to me. But okay, we're going to find out what happens. So they do an investigation, and they're like, okay, let's look at all the clues. There's cigarettes all over the ground, but like 2002, that's before cigarettes was like $1 million a pack, and I guess everybody smoked. So they're like, let's just gather up some of these cigarettes. Maybe somebody, maybe this will give us a clue for something else later on. And they're like, what is that in Ruth's hand? Oh, she has a handful of somebody's hair. Miss Ruth might have been in a fight. So they go over there, and they're like looking around. They're like, hey, Andy, who would have wanted to unalive your wife? And he was like, well, she was getting death threats and threatening phone calls. And the cops were like, wait, what now? What did your wife do for a living? And then he said, she was a housekeeping supervisor over at the hospital. And they were like, that doesn't seem like a death threaty kind of job. And he was like, yeah. See, what happened was two of her coworkers were having an affair, and they were getting it in there at the hospital, in the file room and in the laundry room and all these other places. And everybody was complaining about it, and it was disrupting morale. And I was like, really? It wouldn't have disrupted my morale if that happened in my job. I would be like, where they at now? You think they over there on a pile of sheets? Let's go tip up on them. Okay, I guess it would have disrupted my workflow because I would have been too busy being nosy to be a good housekeeper. Anyway, instead of firing the two people who was having the affair at work, they were like, okay, we're going to separate you and put you on separate shifts. These two people were very, very upset. And so the cops were like, hey, listen, did you unalive the lady who put you on a different shift? And the two people were like, no. One of them quit their job because she's like, you messing up my life. How am I supposed to have this affair if you put me on the night shift and he's on the day shift? I do not like it. But she was like, I was very upset, but I did not unalive the woman. You're going to have to look someplace else. So the cops were like, okay, although they did check out all of her alibi and everything else. And they were like, okay, it wasn't the adulteress. She's a garden tool, but not a murderer. So, okay, fine. And they looked around, they were like, who else could have done this? But there was a white car, right, that sped away from the lot. And everybody was like, let's see if we can find a white car. So they put it on the news. Well, listen, the husband, Andy, he was in a wheelchair. He had some physical disabilities and some emotional disabilities. He had been in Vietnam, so old boy was having a rough time. He had a home health aide, Miss Karen Kloss. And one of the neighbors was watching the video on the news, and she was like, that looked like my neighbor's car. Let me call the police. Ooh, I love a nosy neighbor. Oh, I love a nosy neighbor. The nosy neighbor was like, hello, police. That car that I just saw on the news, that looked just like my neighbor's car. And you know what? My neighbor, she's the husband's home health aide. You might want to come and check her out because something is suspicious. And the police were like, wow, thanks for calling, nosy neighbor. So they go over and they look around and they're like, oh yes, this car does seem to match. And they're like, hey, Karen, hey, listen, were you speeding away from the park and ride? And she was like, what, me? No, I've never been to a park and ride. I don't know what a park and ride is. How do you park and then ride? I know nothing about it. The cops are like, okay, that seems reasonable. And as they're walking away, the neighbor on the other side was like, psst, come here. Come on. Gotta tell you something. So the cops are like, hey, okay, Karen, bye. Go in and lock your door and close the curtains. We're gonna go over here and talk to your other nosy neighbor. So the other nosy neighbor was like, look, you ain't heard this from me, but Andy, that dude with the dead wife, in the wheelchair, he comes over here and he parks his truck out back, and then he wheels his wheelchair around to the front, and he spends all day at Karen's house. And the cops are like, really? Usually in a home health aide situation, the health aide comes to your house. You don't go to their house and spend the entire day. So the cops are like, hey, nosy neighbor, do you know where he was on this particular day? And the neighbor was like, oh, well, let me check my log, because, you know, I'll be logging all the neighbors. Okay, on that particular, what time are you looking for? Okay, yeah, on that day, they were gone from 3 in the afternoon till 7 p.m. Is that helpful? Do you need to know exactly what they were wearing and what they had for lunch that day? And the cops were like, wow, you're thorough, but no, thank you so much. So they go and they sit and talk to Karen, and they're like, Karen girl, listen, we understand that you and this dude, Andy, had a thing going on. Tell us what's really going on. And she's like, okay, I will make a confession. And the cops were like, this is the easiest murder ever to solve. And she was like, I will confess that I was in love with him. And they were like, and what else? And she was like, I will confess that he and I were having an affair. And they were like, we figured that much. She's like, but I did not kill anybody. But my son-in-law really loves me. My son-in-law knew I was upset and in love with this dude. So my son-in-law may have killed Karen on my behalf. And the cops were like, really? Your son-in-law likes you like that? Like, my son-in-law's nice and stuff, but he's not going to murder for me. And she's like, well, I have a very dedicated family. What do you want? And they were like, okay, great. What color is your son-in-law's car? And she's like, oh, he drives my car a lot. So, wait, did you say my car was in? Oh, that could be the day he borrowed my car. And so the cops are like, great, thank you so much. So they go over to the son-in-law's house, but he's not home. So this Karen's daughter was there, and Karen's daughter's like, what? You have a search warrant? Let me read this search warrant. So she's reading through the papers as the cops are searching everything. And she's like, oh, see, she was getting harassing phone calls. There was a white car. Yeah, that tracks. Oh, wait. You have this wrong. No, see, what had really happened was I was making the harassing phone calls on behalf of my mother, and my husband did give my mother a gun, but my husband did not shoot. So can you correct the paperwork, because I don't want these papers to be inaccurate. And the cops were like, really now, Karen's daughter, what else can you tell us about the situation, and where exactly is your husband? We're gonna need to talk to him. And she's like, oh, he's gonna be here in a few minutes. Can I make you a cup of tea? So she made them a cup of tea, and then they sat down, and everybody just had like a little chitty chat. And so they were like, okay, son-in-law, can you tell us your version of the story? And he's like, I'm not going to prison. I like my mother-in-law. I don't like her well enough to go to prison for her. What happened was she was in love with Andy, the dude who she was taking care of. And they were like, right. How did that get to murder? And he was like, so she asked me to murder his wife. And I thought that was a terrible idea, so I kept putting her off. And they were like, It didn't occur to you to call the police at all? And he was like, no, here's why. She offered me $5,000. And I figured, man, I could really use $5,000. So I said, okay, give me the money, and then I will commit the crime. So she gave me the money, and I didn't commit the crime. I just paid some of my bills. Took the wife out to a nice dinner. She got a nice dress. See those earrings she's wearing? That's from the $5,000. The cops are like, right. Can we get back to the murderation part? He was like, right. So I figured I could cheat her out of this $5,000, because what's she gonna do? Call the police and complain? No, she's not. So I just stole the money, and I didn't commit the crime, but I did give her a gun, and I did show her how to use it. And they were like, right. Okay, so tell us more about this gun. And he was like, oh, yeah. She was bad with guns. And so I cocked it for her and got it all set up, and I laid it gingerly in the trunk of her car. And I'm thinking, if this woman hit a bump, then that gun could go off and just shoot and kill anybody. What is happening? And so the son-in-law was like, but that's all I did. Like, I gave her the gun, and I cocked it, and I got it ready, and I put it in the trunk of her car. But I was not involved in the murder at all. And the cops are like, right. Okay, we're gonna go talk to these other people, and we're gonna get back to you. But can you not leave town? He was like, oh yeah, sure. Because obviously I'm not gonna go to jail for anything, because I didn't really do anything. And the cops are like, okay, dum, no problem. So they go back to Andy, and they're like, Andy, listen, Everybody has rolled over. We know the whole story. We know about the fake harassing phone calls and you killing your wife. And he was like, I didn't kill my wife. Karen, my beloved mistress, killed my wife of 30 years. And the cops are like, right, so you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life. He was like, what? I mean, I liked her, but I ain't like her like that. Like, she did nice things to my body, and she cooked me dinner, and she washed my hair and did the laundry. What more could a man want? And the cops are like, maybe to not go to jail. Call me crazy. Most people don't want to spend a lot of time in prison. He was like, right. I really have, I didn't think this through, did I? And the cops were like, yeah, you really didn't think that through. So he was like, okay, I'm going to tell you what happened. I called my wife and I lured her to the parking ride and told her, can you go meet Karen? Because she has a flat tire. And my wife was like, of course, I am helpful and pure and kind. And so she went over to meet Karen and, Karen shot and killed her. And I thought that, like, after she was dead, I thought, dang. But at least I have Karen to take care of me. And then all this went kind of sideways. And they were like, okay. So listen, thank goodness there's a wheelchair ramp down at the jail. You have the right to remain silent. So they smack the cuffs on him and they throw him in the clink. And they go over to Karen's house and they're like, Karen, girl. And she's like, all these people are lying on me. I want to go to court. I will have my day in court. And they were like, okay. And so the son-in-law, John, the son-in-law was like, all I did was I just cocked the gun and put it in the, oh, that's conspiracy? Oh, I was not aware. Take backsies? Can I do take backsies? And they were like, no, John, you are guilty of conspiracy. Now you can go to court if you want to. And he's like, no, okay. So I'm going to do like 5-6 months in jail. And they were like, right. Only like 15. And he was like, 15 minutes, 15 months. And they were like, no, sir, 15 years, 15 years in prison for conspiracy. Y'all do not conspire. Do not conspire. And so Andy was like, I feel terribly guilty. I can't believe I did this to my wife. Oh my gosh, I really loved her. And I was swayed by like a delicious pot pie and some pot roast. And they were like, you're an idiot. Now you're an idiot in a wheelchair in prison. Bye-bye, sir. And so he went to jail for 30 years. Sir! Really? What was she doing that was worth 30 years in prison? I do not understand. But Karen was like, oh, no. You got them Mama Lukes. You don't have me. I am not going to jail. I am going to trial. 2 days into her trial, she's like, this is not looking really good for me, is it? It's not looking that good. So what I'm going to do is, if I plead guilty, can I get a little bit of a lighter sentence, maybe like 2nd-degree murder? And they were like, sure, girl. So she pled guilty to 2nd-degree murder. And she's like, okay, so I'm going to get like 5 or 6 years. And they were like, right. That only, LWOP, life without the possibility of parole. So then Karen went to prison until she died. She died of a heart attack in prison a few years later because the food is bad, the health care is bad, and you know those mattresses are terrible. If it was me, I would die of just heat alone because you know I need a cooling mattress. Child, I need some memory foam. It's a terrible situation. But now they're saying, even all these years later, 20 years later, the family of Karen is still living with the stigma of knowing that their grandma was a murderer. Can you imagine? A small town of people like, hey, how's your mom and them? Oh, your mama was trash and a garden tool. Right. LWOP. I remember you. Pick any table you'd like to sit at. Forever. People gonna be looking at you crazy. But look, that is our lunchtime true crime for today. Go out there and have a good rest of your day. Please do not conspire or commit 1st or 2nd-degree murder. Just a little life hack from me to you. I'll see you soon, friends. Bye.